welcome to another installment of the OpenText Live webinar series. My name is Dylan McConnell, and I'll be moderating today's session on OpenText VCM Motion. On the call today, we have Justo Hidalgo from VILT, giving the majority of the presentation today, including a live demo. And we have Bertrand de Copin and Bear from OpenText on the line to answer any of your questions should they arise. To action of any of these fine gentlemen, you can come into the chat pod located on the right-hand side of your screen at any point during today's presentation, but we'll till the end of the presentation to answer those questions. If you do enter a question in the chat pod, make sure that you are sending the question to all participants so that everyone can follow along. Today is being recorded. We'll be sending an email out to everyone who registered tomorrow with the recording and a copy of Justo's presentation. Live demo, you'll see everything sort of minimized, but you're able to ask a question in the chat pod by going up to the top of your screen and dropping down the chat icon. With that, I think we'll get started. Justo, take her away.
Thanks for attending. My name is Justo, and during the following minutes, I'll introduce what Motion is for. Our main challenges Motion has been created for, and solve them. Analyze, I will demo the product by migrating content from and to web instances. As Dylan mentioned, we will have a Q&A question. So let's start our review. So what OpenText Web Motion is? Well, OpenText Web Motion is an application built on top of a generic content movement engine designed to move web content across web repositories. So what it means only a few operational challenges when moving web content from one repository to another. First of all, the amount of content to migrate is very large. Migration process may require to split the content into different migration packages, and that's typically quite a challenge for the typical operational processes. Migration reports, sometimes the existing migration procedures don't provide enough information about what was imported, what failed, and why it failed. So, for example, moving content from one platform to another may require complex transformation processes to happen prior to importing the content. There are also challenges regarding migration automation. Export-import tasks can take a very long time to run. These processes need to automate it as much as possible. Regarding error handling, migration processes usually are erroneous processes by nature. It's sometimes difficult to take care of the errors or mistakes and resume the normal execution of the process. Another main challenge that we typically have when migrating content and moving content, content repository platforms may or may not have direct connectivity with each other. Sometimes export and import processes have to occur in very different environments, disconnected from each other. There are several data movement tools on the market. The truth is that moving content is not the same as moving data. So there are challenges that are quite specific. Often the content repositories provide export or import tools that are very limited and require specialized consultancies from the content migration task. And this has the four problems. I mean, first, references web-managed contents are structured. Contents have references of different types between them, and these need to be moved as well. For example, a file has a strong reference to its parent folder. You need to move the folder before moving the file itself. Regarding section, often the contents to be exported are a subset of the available contents. It may be hard to identify and find the correct contents to export. There are problems and challenges with conflicts. Where importing contents, conflicts may occur. For instance, contents may already exist at the target repository. What's to decide if content needs to be overwritten or not. What dependency issues? Contents need to be imported in a very specific and precise order so that dependencies or references are imported before. So with time, we have created a tool to solve all these challenges and ease all types of content movement projects. Now the challenges, we can define Motion better. So OpenText Motion is a content movement engine that lets you export and import content from and to content repositories with specific connectors for web experience management, from version 7.5 to 2.5, brand new 8.5, and managing complex content migration plans. So the movement projects take days or weeks instead of months. Motion is focused on 4 main use cases, namely upgrades and migrations, backup and store, synchronization of our environments, and disaster recovery. And a few minutes to understand what we mean with each of these cases. Regarding upgrades and migrations, this is a clear case where content movement is critical. Content migration happens in many situations. For example, upgrade of key data content systems, M&As, consolidation of modernization of the IT infrastructure, and so on. These typically take long, big-sized teams, so it can be performed in the proper way. Type of use case is the backup and restoration projects, where in this case, content needs to be stored for security or legal regulatory reasons. This is typically cost-related projects and should be handled as quickly and safely as possible. Not the case in most situations. But restoration projects have changing needs regarding granularity and scope of the content to be stored or retrieved. The use case is the synchronization of environments, avoiding or minimizing network quality dependence. When different content management versions exist, it can be critical in the localized and fault-tolerant working and production environments. We need local access to global information because it is expected by many end users. The idea is maintaining synchronized copies or ever-changing and growingly interrelated content while maintaining the production environment going on. The fourth main use case, even though there can be many others, is disaster recovery. This is a very specific but business core type of backup restoration project. Proper content disaster recovery systems need to back up the data, the metadata, and the relationships among the different content items. If not, the recovery process becomes a long nightmare. So how does web motion work in order to be effective in all these cases? So what motion does is define an architecture that you can see on the screen, where central engine interacts with the web instances through platform-dependent motion connectors. These connectors hide any inner complexity of the integration from the business logic defined in the motion engine. The motion engine can potentially connect with any type of content management instance version as long as there's a motion connector for it. We will see it works in detail with web instances when we get to the demo. For that, let's take a look at the primary features and the benefits of web motion. First set of features is flexibility. Flexibility is key for any tool, especially when it has to accommodate among many different instance versions. An engine is agnostic to the content data format due to the use of the connectors I just mentioned, in the movement of content from many different types of instances. We are focusing today on web instances, but rather no limit here. And we will see that in the demo as well. Motion lets administrators define ways of navigating or browsing around the content exposed by the connectors. Different standpoints of the same content set, from sites to projects, that simplifies the mission and backup jobs. Each of the features is related to connectivity. Before, web motion provides connector to all major web versions, 7.6, 0.5, 0.6, 8.1, and new 8.5. In addition, connectors are implemented so content can only be newly created on the target instance, but can also be updated or removed based on the source content and metadata. The first is what we call content movement and transformation features. As we talk about content movement, it's important to emphasize that motion enables it across all stages, both from management and production stages. While in many cases the content will be directly moved from source to target, there are other cases where it is critical to transform content based on internal algorithms or external lookups or whatever. As we will see, motion provides a powerful mechanism for that matter. User experience is key to the design of motion. From the start, the focus has been on establishing a low learning curve for administrators and users alike, and maximum productivity. Motion is a very clean interface that exposes the main capabilities in a very simple manner, as you will see in a second. Yeah, some of the main features and benefits. Performance and fault tolerance are probably two of the key reasons why you are right now interested in motion. OpenText recognizes the need for a performance efficient environment where migration job times are optimized. Therefore, Motion provides a fault tolerant environment by enabling offline storage, critical in production environments. With some examples of how it can be done with a few mouse clicks. Okay. Motion provides several performance improvements over existing alternatives like VGN imports and export tools, command tools. Motion groups content into buckets can be moved independently since these are self-dependent buckets, hence enabling parallel processing of the jobs. Tooling has also been implemented also for parallel execution. And as mentioned before, can be moved incrementally, what is known as differential synchronization, which again enhances performance. As a benefit that I wanted to talk about today provided by Motion, reporting and logging available, so administrators and users can easily monitor the status of each of running and finished jobs. And we have a schedule that is available which enables Chrome-based tasks to be scheduled. These are also fault tolerant to avoid successful stages to be executed again for no reason. Okay. So going into the demo, hope the main features and benefits are clear. We wanted to mention some success stories. The first time we using Motion with real customers. Let's talk briefly about a migration success case. The town hall of Barcelona in Spain required use of Motion to perform a migration of their website content from V6 and 7.5 to OpenText 1. And also implied that after the full migration, time synchronization between the old and the new instances was a must, while new content was created on the older instance. As you see the statistics section of the slide, at the end of the project, there were more than 100 sites that had been migrated with more than 1 million elements, and about 50 gigabytes of static files had been moved. The synchronization, I think that's important, enabled that an average of 5,000 content instances were created on 7.5 instance, while being automatically migrated to the new 8.5 instance. All of this with no downtime of 7.5, an estimated savings of around 70%, 70% of the project's estimated project duration. The case that we wanted to mention describes a disaster discovery case where Motion turned to be a critical asset. Like a Spanish financial institution that had thousands of content instances that were damaged to a bad script implementation and deployment. This created a crisis in the institution as this was content published online. Relations were deleted from all instances, which added importance to the mistake. Fortunately, there was no valid backup available because there were too many changes that had been made since the last backup was done. The solution was achieved with Motion by exporting the instances out of the delivery stage. Not all content was there. It was good enough, about 5%. That was over 1,000 content instances. Motion took less than an hour. Most importantly, the I was basically priceless. So it was clear. I'm going to jump into the demo. First, explain what the architecture of the demo is. Basically, we have a scenario where we have an instance of OpenText 8.5 and an instance of OpenText 8.5.
Gusto, can I add something here just for a minute? This is Bertrand. So just one thing. We've been also using Motion for the upgrade of the OpenText.com website, which is live on WAM 8.5 since yesterday. So just wanted to a little bit of context on what we did internally with the Motion product. And to you.
All right, that's great news, Bertrand. Thanks so much. All right, so this is the architecture that I'm going to be showing. Again, let me just repeat again. Basically, we're going to have an 8.1 instance and the 8.5 instance of WAM. And what I want to do is demo. We're going to be moving the content from the 8.1 to 8.5. While in products, this could be very easily done by moving it from 8.1 to 8.5 directly. In this specific example, and just for the sake of showing it in the demo, we're going to be using an intermediate connector, which is going to be an offline. I'll explain that in a second, but what this provides is the ability for the content migrated from 8.1 to be temporarily stored in a local storage, just for the sake of backup or for the sake of error checking before moving it to 8.5 to the 8.5 instance. As I mentioned before, in some cases the repositories are not going to be available to each other, so this is a way to solve that important issue. How does it work with Motion? Basically, we have a set of content migration stages. Number one, of course, we need to define the job, the migration job or the content movement job we want to create, to execute. I'll show you how in a minute. And of course, we can schedule those jobs executions. Then we're going to have a second stage, which is called computation, where basically the Motion engine, by using the Motion connector, is going to be able to get the data out of the source content repository and process it in order to properly know which information, which content needs to be migrated, in which order, and which references are critical for the migration. Once this is ready, then we can go on to the third stage, which is called export, where the content from the source instance is actually moved to Motion engine and temporarily stored in their internal database. We can potentially have a transformation stage, the one cited as number 4 in the slide, where some transformation in the content can be executed before moving it into the target. We'll do a very simple transformation of the content in the demo. And, to finish, finally, the content is moved from Motion engine to the target repository by using the appropriate Motion connector, in this case, the 8.5 Motion connector. The stage 6 is actually a very generic one. We provide governance tools so you can actually take a look at how the things are going, was any mistake, any problem, any error, and act accordingly. Right? Before jumping into the conclusions, let me then share my screen, and I'm going to show you the demo. Yep. So let me first what the environments are. First, here we have the 8.1 environment. We have different, but I'm just going to focus on the slide demo. We have different content from books with the title, the description of each of the books, and organized stories. We have musical films, we have fairy tales, we have ballads, we have different types of textual and literary content. We have the 8.5 instance where we have some, where we want to migrate the content to. Let's move to Motion. This is a web-based service. We recommend Internet Explorer 10, Chrome 28, or Firefox 22 or later to access Motion. And in order to log in, login can be managed through LDAP, either the WEM, VCM app, or an external one. So I'm going to introduce my credentials directly. As I said, is a very simple interface. Our goal for this demo is going to be to configure the system so that we can create a migration process from 8.1 to 8.5 by using an offline connector in the middle. So you will see 4 main tabs here. Main tabs are meant for administrators. I'm entering as an administrator in order to create and configure the connectors and what we call the navigators that I'll explain in a minute. What normal users will only see the jobs and executions tab enable the user to actually, select, create the jobs and monitor the executions here. Let's focus first on what administrators can do in order to set up the environment, which allows us to execute these migrant jobs and content movement jobs and retrieve results. What you see here is a set of connectors that in this case we already created, but you can create your own. So for example, here you have the WAM 8.1 connector. Basically, what we do is select whether this is a remote or an offline connection type of connector. Here is the URL that provides access to the actual service that implements the connector. Okay, of course, with username and password credentials. With this, we are able to go. Of course, prior to this action, the connector must be deployed appropriately. The 8.1 connector, the 8.5 connector. I've also created a line connector. This is the one again that will be used to temporarily store the information that we migrate from 8.1 to prepare it for the 8.5 migration. Okay. Hope you can see the screen. I think there's a little delay. Okay, great. Once the connector is ready, we need to create a way to actually define how information is going to be retrieved from the instances and moved to the target connector. For this, we create what we call navigators. A navigator basically defines the viewpoint of the content that we have in our source connector and target connector, and how we want to see it and how we want to select it. In this, for example, what I've done is create a navigator that allows to see the different channels I have in the content management system and the content that resides in each of the channels. I create other navigators in order to see, for example, projects. So I would just create another query, as you see here, where instead of defining that I want to see the type name equal to size, I can select the project and add accordingly. In this, as I'm very focused on migrating the content with the channels that are on 8.5, I specific navigator, and you will see how we see it, how the motion will see it. In this case, you can see, and there's a delay again. Okay. And basically, I went to the test tab. I selected the connector that I want to choose with the configuration of the navigator, and I clicked on refresh. By clicking refresh, what I'm seeing is the different channels that I have in my site, okay, with the different sub-channels. Yeah. So there's a little delay, so I'm just waiting. So you will see the actions I'm doing. Okay. What I'm doing here is refreshing, then navigator shows the information as I chose it to be by using channels, sub-channels, and the content. And you can see that I have basically the same structure as I have in the 8.1 with the stories and different sub-channels. I go to 8.1 instance, you will see the same structure from a channel standpoint. Okay. This is basically what the administrator needs to do. He needs to be aware of which connectors we're going to need. Those are the ones that are going to be part of your licensing. And then the navigators, meaning what types, how I want to see the information, how I want to create the tree of them that I want to be moving from source to target. With that, I move to the Jobs tab. This is part of user access, so administrators are still going to be able to see this, and users are going to be able to see this as the first tab. Okay, so here again, you can create your jobs as you want them. Basically, I will be explaining there. Basically, as a job tab, you will be able to choose the source and target of your migration job. I already created a couple of them, so I'm going to be focusing on those to explain the actions. So what we want to do, as I mentioned, is I want to move from WAM 8.1 to my offline connector. So in this case, what I did is I named the job, of course. I selected the WAM 8.1 connector as a source instance, and then it was the recently created offline OT demo connector as the local storage that I'm going to be using. Of course, I can add any description, in order to be described this action. Okay. The tab allows us to actually select what specific part of the whole tree of the connection of the 8.1 instance I want to migrate. In case I want to migrate the whole site. So basically, what I did is I selected the whole story site, but actually select any sub channel or any part of the content. Even if I want to do, if I want to be more specific, I use a SQL-like query to actually select additional items on the on motion that actually would take additional information, additional content from the source item. In this case, I just want to focus on the whole site. Basically, I want to do a full migration of the site. I'm selecting graphically the story site by using the navigator. The tab allows me to select which elements or which parts of the subtree I actually want to migrate. So once I've selected the channels that I want to move, I want to, for example, select that I want to move the plus the children channels that I want to that are related to the panel, or I want to select also the content that is related to the channel. In this case, what we want to do is exactly that. I want to move the channel and whatever is below that. I selected a different references, a set of the references that allow to automate the process. If I created, for example, an indicator where I wanted to focus on projects and the information below those projects, then I would have to choose other references like parent projects or children projects. In this case, again, I'm very focused on the channels, so I want to move channels and the content related to each of those. As mentioned during the presentation, there can be typically references between the elements of content. By checking the Spanish strong references checkbox, what I'm telling Motion to do is to do the job for me. Basically, find any single strong references so that the bucket that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation allows Motion to, the Motion is going to select a set of the elements of the content instances that reference. So we can actually be sure that all the content goes together and is going to be moved and migrated in the appropriate order. I also move differences if I want, but I'll show that in the second part of the demo, because since now I just want to migrate to do migration, I'm going to select that I want all the content to be moved. There are also some conflict policies. What happens if some parts of the content or all the content is already exists in the instance? Well, some different policies I want to use. I can ignore it, of course, but in this case, since I want to do a full revamp of the content in 8.5, I'm going to override. Okay. Once I have the whole content defined, what the policies are going to be, what types of references are going to be moved, I want to filter some of this information. In this case, I won't go into much detail, but this is all explained in the user manual. But basically, I can define that parts of the content are not going to be migrated. In this case, what I'm trying to avoid is for cache instances to be moved to the 8.5 instance. I don't need that, so I'm just going to delete it or filter it by using this tab. Later about transformation scripts. Right now, in this first stage, since I want just to move everything to the offline storage, I'm not going to add any transformation script. I want, in this case, yes, it takes a little time. Again, a little delay. Let's see how when it moves to a scheduler. Okay. Well, we'll see in a second, hopefully, is that the scheduler has two ways to, here we have two ways to schedule the job execution. Of course, one is to manually. I will do that in seconds. But you can also use cron, a cron-based scheduler, to actually select when exactly you want to execute the job in your machine. Okay. In this case, what we're going to do is run it manually. And I think this might take a little while. I'm going to run it first, so it starts working. But I'm going to explain how I can do this. I'll send in the slides. there are different stages in the migration, in the content movement process. And I can do all those processes one by one or all at the same time. First in run, what I said is basically, hey guys, what I want is the content from 8.1 to be moved to in this case, to the offline connect, to the offline storage through the offline connector. That's fine. I could do that step by step. I could actually select compute and check that the computation process is working fine. That computation, the computation stage meant that what Motion is going to do is just take the metadata from the 8.1 connector and check that all the references are working and it's exactly what we want. Then I can actually compute and export, meaning that I want to compute, but also I want to move effectively the metadata and the content from the 8.1 instance to Motion and be stored temporarily in Motion. Okay, by pressing the run button, I'm doing is I just want to execute the whole video. If I go to the executions tab, they have a list of all executions that have been executed before, so I can actually have a history of everything that has been working on and check everything, whether everything is working or not, and it's providing me with the information about the status of the job of execution. I can just refresh and let me that it stopped. I finished the computation stage, and it's started the migration. This will take a while, so bear with me a little bit. I will tell you a bit more about this screen. I can check how each of the jobs has been working. I can filter those jobs by execution date, by status, so I just can focus on the ones that were successfully imported, for example. Okay, I've got those information for the ones that fail. I don't know if we have one here that failed before. So in this case, it has been going well. But I have all the information here about everything that was going on. For I can filter by name. I can filter by anything that I want here. So here, let's see how things are going. This can do a full migration to the offline. It's still taking a while. It will take a few minutes. So in the meantime, just to summarize what we've done, what we've done is we've selected the connectors that were previously created by our administrators, or the administrator needs to create one. With those connectors, we then went to the Navigator tab in order to make sure that the way we want to migrate the content from the original instance is how we want it, based on channels, based on projects, based on the instances that were executed in the last couple of days, for example. Once we had that, we moved to the Jobs tab. What we basically did was to configure the jobs that we want to execute here. So we selected the source target, the source and the target, and then with some of the elements that were working. So here, that finally the project has been successfully imported. We saw the creation was okay, that the computation had 1,012 items were computed, and all the items were successfully imported. We can actually check that very easily by going back to the Navigator and the offline demo where the content was migrated. If everything went well, you could see the whole story site has been moved with content available in the system, right? So now the 8.1 content moved into the offline connector, into a local repository. And please let me emphasize that we don't need that. This is not forced by Motion. You could actually decide to move all the content directly from 8.1 to 8.5. You would create a job. You would select 8.1 connector to 8.5, and you would do basically what I've done before directly. But in this case, I wanted to show how it is possible to actually create an intermediate process, intermediate storage, where you can actually check that everything goes well before moving it to your, for example, production environment. Right. Within in the offline storage, and now we want to move it into WEM 8.5. We have a job here, very simple to create. Source in this case is the offline OT demo connector. The target is 8.5 connector. The items in this case are exactly the same because I want to do the full operation again. Regarding the policies, again, I want to move the content, the channels, the sub-channels, the content. I don't want anything else. And there's another difference that I will mention later in more detail, but basically the backup to recover from the offline storage is just the last state. Right now, this was a new connector with new storage, so this is the only thing I can do. To see later that we can do a few different things. I want to expand the strong references, and of course, I want to move everything, so I'm just going to say that everything that you find on the instance, and that is the same in the 8.1 instance, I'm going to overwrite. It's exactly the same. I just want to avoid any problem with hash. Right? Okay, I'm going a little slow. Okay. So you have the filter clause is exactly the same. I just want to make sure that will not happen because it was already filtered, but just in case, it's good to worry about that. And then in the transformation script, I just want to do something very simple, which is to add a little suffix to the content titles. Okay. In this case, I just want to mention that this content was transformed by OpenText Web Experience Management with today's date. Okay. All right. So I'm just, I was like everything, even though when you run it, it's automatically saved. Okay, all these delays that you're seeing here are because of the WebEx connection. Everything goes quite fast with Motion. What I'm going to do is run it again. Okay, again, this is going to take a little bit. Right, and you hear just with this little delay in how things are going. So I just cache, and it tells me that, of course, the computation was really fast because it was already computed offline. And now it's migrating the content from the offline connector to 8.5. Okay. Again, very pushy on this and explain this again. What we've been doing is we moved everything from 8.1 to the offline storage by using the offline connector. Again, this is not necessary at all by Motion, but it is good in production environments just to make sure the content that you're moving is clearly prepared before moving it to your production environment, to the delivery stage environment. This is very simply done by jobs. The thing to always have into account is that, and well, I'll show it while this is migrating to around that you can even filter and select which specific items from the offline connector are actually moved to the 8.5 instance. So you could actually have a big offline storage from where you select which specific instances you're moving to your environment, and you select the policies. That's very important. You need to properly define what the reference is before you actually move the information. If not, you might lose some content information there. Okay. So this is all migration. Yes. Okay. This works. I'll keep on remembering things. Filtering is, in this case, was not necessary, but what this means again is we allow the system to filter any type of information that we don't want to migrate at all. With that, we could do the guide the items, but in this case we wanted to do a full migration, so that's why we selected this. One thing I didn't mention is that the transformation script is in Groovy. This is a high-level scripting language, very simple, as you see, very similar to JavaScript, to Java. So it's very simple to create the scripts that allow you to add, transformation items. And of course, it allows to add external lookups, so it can take information from servers from the outside to actually transform the content there. See, things are going, still take a while. No, I might try to do some jokes there. What you hear in 8.5 in the meantime is I already have some content here. Let me just enter again. Sorry. Okay, we have different stories, sites, but we have a site where we have example, in this case, information. The transformation is there. I think we are about to be finished. The content migrated. I just wanted to show you before how the content was before the migration. But it will take a while. But so basically, again, we have information here. We have something very similar to what we have in 8.1, but we're going to be doing the transformation I showed before. So actually, some cases we are going to be able to see it. Yeah. So here, if I open this, now in real time, all content is already being transformed. So I open this, you will see how the title has been fixed with the text that we added before. Let's see, things are going here, still migrating, so that means that not all the content has transformed, but basically, elements that previously was not, you only have the title here, have been transformed by adding the content, and everything has been properly migrated. For this, we say file that can probably 8.5 instance is going a little bit slow. But let's see how things are going here. I mean, I always have all the information about how things are going here. What I mentioned is that you can actually take a look at the items that are being migrated and being moved. So you can actually see how they are being computed in case there was any error or there was any item that was ignored, because as I will show you in a second, we can make differential synchronizations as well. Okay. In this case, it will be very easy to actually, and actually I can check, for example, let's see, Caroline book has not been migrated yet, but you will see something similar like this. You will see the ID of the content element, the name, and then the state of the element. Okay. So provide information about the plan, so you always know which plan you're actually using in your job. Okay. Let's see if this works or not. Okay. Let's see in the meantime all the things that we can do with the jobs. When we moved everything to the offline in the policies, you saw some buttons that I didn't explain before. That in any connector, you decide to move differences only, the differential synchronization. What this means is that Motion is going to take the information from, in this case, 8.1, the source connector, is going to compare it with the metadata from 8.5, and it's going to decide which content elements are actually going to be moved into the system. And you can decide whether even if there are any element that existed in the target instance and doesn't exist anymore in the source instance, you decide by checking this element, checkbox. Sorry, yeah, still going a little bit slow. Let me try to do this again. What I want is just I can move the differences only in the policies tab of the jobs, and then select, even choose that if there's a element in the source instance that is not target instance that exists anymore in the source instance, but in this checkbox you can motion to do it, or at least to try it if it's allowed by the 8.5 to target instance. Okay, I will show you in a second how this works, but I think that finally the execution has finished. Yes, so it's been imported, and you can see how everything has been imported successfully. An error message here, and we get how that is. Basically, a system error. So none of the content had any problem importing. It's just that 8.1 Motion tried to export and import into 8.5 some system content element that 8.5 told Motion not to accept. So, and this is very very interesting for administrators in order to check where everything is going well or not. And there will be a problem if part of the content we actually want to migrate had failed, but in this case everything is working perfectly well. Okay, so now I go again to the to 8.5. You will see, well, of course, we are not going to go one by one, but you could see that everything is actually updated with transformation. So I can go to Umbrella, I can check for Coin, which is a book, and again, the file has been transformed. Okay? Just for the sake of time, I just want to do one more thing, just to show you how to do it. Is let's say that now I move Coraline from the 8.1 instance, from the source instance. I just move Coraline on the Novella channel to, for whatever reason, musical films. Okay. Now you can see that Coraline is not in novellas and is in the musical films. Here you have it. Perfect. Okay. Also, what here, how would I create a job in order to make sure that there's a different synchronization? So any change in the source instance automatically migrated and moved to the target instance. Okay. So what I do is, again, use my my WEM 8.12 offline job. I would actually use exactly the same source and target connectors. I would use the same because I'm not really sure which items have been changed. So I'm not going to change anything here. But in the policies, I'm going to select move differences only. And again, I mentioned before, I'm going to move this. I'm going to allow to move deletions from source to target. But this is that what I expect is for the motion to actually move. That means Coraline from the novellas to the movies channel and delete it from novellas. And the conflict policy overrides. I'm going to do just exactly the same as I did before. Hopefully, it won't take that much. Okay. I'm going to do once this is finished is I'm going to use the offline connector again to just move it to the 8.5, and we'll check in the content management system to see if 8.5 actually reflects those changes. Okay. You can move things like that while this is running. What you can do while this is coming is that this is done. I check that, oh my God, this is a complete mistake. The Coraline should have been moved into, should be kept in novellas, but there are so many changes, we cannot do it manually. So actually use the backup connector to recover out of a previous state. So instead of using the backup, instead of the backup after the migration we're doing now, we actually go back in time and say, use the status of the back connector as it were 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, or 2 days ago. Okay. And I have time to demo this, but basically this is extremely useful for disaster recovery. Okay. Compute again, we're moving the whole, this is computing the whole system, and this can it takes a little bit. Okay. But I want to summarize what we're doing. In this case, what we've done is move everything, change or update a small item. We don't really know as administrators what content item was actually updated. So we're in motion in order to find what's going on, to compare 8.1 metadata with the 8.5 data, and actually find out the contents that just need to be moved from 8.1 to 8.5. I see if hopefully you could see with WebEx, the compilation took a while, but the importation was really fast because Ocean just realized that only one item needed to be computed. So if I go to items, in this case, move to Coraline, you could see that Coraline was imported because it was newer here, right? So let's go quickly to jobs again. Now we have it in the offline, and do the same from offline to 8.5. So I go to places, I move differences only, I do the deletions. So I just want to do exactly the same. I just want 8.5 to actually be the same as 8.1, and I just want to run it. Right? Take a little bit less because computation should be a little bit faster, but it still needs to take the metadata from 8.5. I'm sure which piece of information needs to move from the repository to the 8.5 repository. And I'll go faster than the demo. What we expect is to happen is that 8.5 shows that Coraline has been moved out of the novellas side and channel and moved to the movies channel. And sorry about this little delay, but we wanted the demo to be as realistic as possible, so we're using a real channel with real information, not just a few elements here. What I like to do, based on everything we've done so far, we've defined the connectors. It can be remote connectors to the remote instances, or it can be local connectors or offline connectors for intermediate and local storage. We define the navigators to actually define which type of information and how we want to move it. What we have done is to generate jobs by selecting the source and target connectors with all the items that are that were in the connectors we want to actually move, and some policies in order for motion to know what to do in case there's any conflict. We want to write, we want to ignore, we want to do differential synchronization, etc., etc. Once we've done that, we can skip the job, or we can just execute it directly. And we can select, even I showed that directly, to run the whole process directly, or to go step by step. The computation, checking the export process, and checking the import process from to the target connectors. So now creating the content. Hope you can see it on WebEx. Now it's automatically imported. See that additional items have been computed more than current. That's because some system instances and system elements have also been tried to be moved. 8.5 will not accept it, so that's why there's some error messages again. But the Coraline, which is what we care in this case, the Coraline item has been successfully moved. Now we'll quickly check whether this works or not. Let me just refresh 8.5, and if my loss leaves us a little bit happy, we will see that in Novella's channel there is no more. While if I jump to musical forms, you'll see Coraline transformed by OpenText Motion. Okay, to base. So hopefully, just I will go back to the final presentation and go back for questions. The other questions, content is most content migration tool that have been engineered to minimize the effort in corporate and complex projects. As you see, everything is basically click and go, so it saves you time and money. There are lots of one connectors, but it's a generic platform for the future, so it can be seen as a content movement tool, and it's basically ready to be used. We have already existing success cases, and of course, we are open to any additional questions you may have. So thanks so much for your attention.
Thank you. At this time, I don't see any questions in the chat pod. If any of you have asked a question, not seeing it, chances are you just need to retype your question and use the All Participants option in the Send To drop-down. We'll just minutes to see if anyone drops some questions for you, Justo. Until then, do you have anything you'd like to finish off with, or maybe Alan or Bertrand, would you like to chime in?
Yeah, my role, I hope the demo has been clear to everyone, the capabilities and the potential use for every single type of content movement project that you may have. We're not talking about migrations, we're talking about disaster recovery, about backup. Please take that into account. And if you have any questions, please reach us so we can work out with you, in which cases we can help you.
Okay, question from Grant. The question is, will object IDs, for example, channel or content, be served when being migrated?
Yeah, the IDs are kept, so maintained, of course.
Okay. That's all for now. If anyone has any questions that they would like to ask later on today, maybe after you've given it some thought, you can feel free to send an email at live@opentext.com, and we will pass those along to Justo or Bertrand. The question? I think that we'll end today's session. So I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks again for to Husto for the presentation and his demo, and thank you for attending today's session. Talk to you all.